Welcome to I'm Too Busy, an interview-based show hosted by a talented makeup artist, Christina Flach. Christina offers viewers a unique blend of personal stories, inspiring journeys, and practical beauty tips. Join the conversation as Christina features successful individuals from various industries who share their insights on health, wellness, makeup, and the keys to their success. So now, please welcome the host of I'm Too Busy, Christina Flach.
Hello, I am Christina Flach, and I want to welcome you to I'm Too Busy TV. Today, we're joined by Grace Redman. She's a dynamic entrepreneur. She's a success coach, a speaker with over 25 years of experience in the San Francisco Bay Area. Grace is a best-selling author of Can I Live? Dare to Go from Effed Up to Fabulous. And she hosts Real Talk, her own podcast. A true amazing woman. She is my friend, and she has gone through many ups and downs, but she always comes up on top because she has just this incredible, positive, beautiful attitude. I can't wait for you to meet her. So welcome, Grace.
Hi, Christina. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Hello, my friend.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I can't believe we're doing this.
I know.
We're here. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I'm excited
So
to share.
Grace and I met at a yay. So Grace and I met at a ladies' lunch like 2 years ago.
Yes. Maybe even a little bit longer.
We just kind of like fell in love and became great friends. And then she had me on her. Has it been maybe 3 years?
Yeah, time flies.
So it's just been a joy. It really does. Grace is one of those dear friends of mine that I don't get to see nearly enough. So it is a total pleasure to have her here today. So Grace, why don't you give us the elevator version of your life, and then we'll dig deeper.
The elevator version of my life. Well, I think, most of us have, certain experiences in our life that shape us and make us who we are. And typically those experiences are the challenging experiences that teach us how to keep our, self safe and teach us how to get to where we're going. And so for me, growing up, I had this feeling of not being good enough and dealing with some adversities. And for me, the way that I transmuted that was to just be the best that I can, to be successful, so then I can feel good enough. And what I learned was like I was chasing the dragon, because once I achieved that success, I still didn't feel good enough. And that led me on a journey, a transformation, where I just had this spiritual awakening. And I realized it's not just about the outer success. It's about what happens inside. And that's what I'm so passionate about now, is really helping others recognize, like, yes, it's a great thing for us to, achieve. However, if we have it tied to things outside of us, we're always going to feel exhausted. Do you know what I mean? Have you ever felt that way? Just going, then you feel exhausted. You still don't feel fulfilled.
Right. No, I get that. But it's so funny. If people would look at your life, you're beautiful, you're successful, you've got this amazing marriage and family, and your business is done incredibly well. No one would believe that you couldn't possibly be feeling good about yourself on the inside. And I really admire that you're able to be transparent and open about your true feelings, because it's so easy for all of us. When people see us on social media, they're like, oh, you've got this extraordinary life. And, people don't really see that, we all have struggles, and so what was that like for you? Like, what was the first steps in this transformation?
That's a great question. Well, one of the first steps that I wasn't even aware was a first step was when I was 19 years old. And I talk about this in the book, so I'm being transparent. I found myself on the sidewalk of an office building close to my home, just in tears because one of the boys the boy I was dating, hit me and threw my keys on the roof. And in that moment, I was sitting on the sidewalk, just feeling ashamed and devastated. And I had no one to go to because in the world that I grew up in, that you don't talk about those things, because if I went to anyone with that, it would just I would be a failure, and I just had too much shame. But there was something inside of me that knew something was off. So my first step was at the age of 19, knowing enough or having enough intuition to guide me to start going to therapy. So I would say that was the first step. And then I would say 10 years ago, when I went back to get coach certified, I had another transformation. And that was where I learned that, okay, success is an inside job, it's not an outside job. And that's when I recognized there were so many different layers that I still needed to heal to really achieve holistic success and have that
Hmm.
emotional and mental freedom and financial freedom. And I had financial freedom up to that point, but I didn't have the emotional and mental freedom. I was still like in a prison of my own doing.
But don't you think that this sort of work that we do on ourselves, it's never ending? I mean, I don't feel like you get to the point you're like, oh, I'm fixed. I think it's like an onion and the layers keep unraveling and we keep, digging deeper and deeper and doing more and more. Don't you find that?
Absolutely. 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 Because sometimes I'm like, okay, Grace, didn't I deal with that? Didn't I address that? Didn't I feel through that pain? And something will come up and I'll feel it again, and I'll have to do a little bit more work. And what I'm realizing, and maybe you can, share on this as well. It As we do the work and other things come, it doesn't feel as intense. Like I feel it, but it's not as intense. It's not as painful. And also, when we go through life, we also build resilience.
It's true.
And so now I feel I'm a lot more resilient. So when challenges come my way, they don't knock me out like they used to.
Yeah,
I
no, I
really
get that.
resilience muscle.
But also, I think, you learn from these, experiences that have taken you to a new level. And then when it comes back, you're just going to dig deeper. Like, cause you're like, well, I thought I dealt with that situation before. But I think when you get stronger and braver, uh, that it comes back and you go back into that same thing a little deeper because you weren't able to go deeper than you went the first time. So that's why it pops back up. I think. I don't know.
I
What are
love
your thoughts?
I know I love that. And you're right. It goes a little bit deeper. And also, I believe that it, we also need to be ready to deal with some of the deeper layers. And the steps that we
Hmm.
take on this journey prepare us, because there might be something that I wasn't ready to deal with. I had to go through all of these other experiences to be ready to deal with something much deeper, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get that. And you've done a lot of work. Haven't you worked with Diane? Have you worked
I've
with Diane,
definitely
the energy? Yeah.
connected with Diane.
Yeah. So
She's
I
amazing.
work with this amazing healer in Canada, Diane, and she is, she clears energies. And I've been working with her for 6 years and it doesn't seem like it's ending. Just like the onion just keeps getting, you know, clearing out more stuff. But so do you find that you're going through different kinds of therapy now after this amount of time, or you work with the same person? Or do you have a few people that you work with?
I have a few people that I work with, and typically I work with coaches. So I have a mental performance coach I work with. I have a spiritual coach I work with. I've been working with her for 7 years. I have coaches I work with for my businesses. So I work with several different people. And one person I've been working
Hmm.
with for 7 years, and the other people I've been working with are new. But throughout my career, I've had coaches for the business, and I saw the same therapist for 25 years. But for the last 10 years, I've been working with strictly coaches.
So let's go into a little bit about your success coaching, because I like that word instead of, a lot of people call it a different kind of a thing. What do most people call it, a success? They don't really call it a success coach. They call it their motivational coach, or what are they typically called? Because I think this comes from a much more positive way than just, some people are not able. I just like, it's just it's so you that it's a success coach, because you're so positive and you use your energy in such a good way.
I appreciate you. There's so many different coaches. There's life coaches, which encompass, personal and professional. There's coaches that niche out to do. There's coaches for so many different niches. And I chose, the title success coach because success can mean whatever you want it to mean across the board. Because success to one person can mean, climbing the corporate ladder, when success to another person can mean, you know, being the best parent, brother, sister, mother that they can be. And so again, it just depends on what it means to you. But ultimately, I feel like success is kind of connecting with the best version of yourself, whatever that may be for you.
So do you feel that you use some of the therapy that you've learned, and that's helped, shape you? Do you feel like you use that with some of your coaching with your clients?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it depends on the client. And also I'm very intuitive. So also use energy, I use intuition. I'm an NLP master certified coach, so I do use NLP. I also use emotional freedom technique with some of my clients, and I also use the very practical tools, because yes, healing is energy, but we also have to take action as well. So what I do is I really take the practical, and if I can call them the holistic spiritual, and I combine them together, because I really believe that you need both to create the type of success to, heal and move you forward.
So when you're working with a client, do you, what, I mean, every client's different, I'm sure, but does it start with the inside out? Do you kind of start with what they're feeling emotionally and then you go into their business, or how does it work?
Exactly. So I definitely start from the inside out, because whatever's keeping us from moving forward in our business is tied to an unconscious story that we're telling ourselves. Typically, that was created from our childhood to help keep us safe, and we don't even realize that. So that's why, like, that's where we start. Like, I start, right here, and sometimes I have to do it very gently, because not everyone is aware that, and they don't want to believe it either, and so that's okay. So sometimes we really have to start at the basics, and then sometimes it takes time to get to that, unconscious programming, because it's tied to the belief system, and if that belief system is tied to our identity, we're not going to want to let that go very easily.
Do you find that people, when they come to you, do you think they're pretty open to this, that, or do you find that some people are a little hesitant and skeptical?
I'm a big
Because that must be
believer.
a little frustrating for you. I mean, if someone comes to you, they say they want help, but yet they, their words and their actions say otherwise, right?
Well,
So
typically.
how do you handle that?
Sure. Well, again, it's like I believe in the law of attraction. So we attract the clients that I believe that we're meant to support. And you, I would say a few years ago, I would be frustrated by that. And now I understand, it's a gift to help support someone through, the beginning stages of awareness. They may not be aware. And so it's a gift for me to take that time and patience, because once they get that awareness, or have that awareness, it's a gift to witness. It's beautiful for me to witness and, be on that journey with them. So years ago, it would be frustrating. Now it's beautiful to hold their hand, and on that journey, and then watch the light bulb go on the different, awarenesses.
So typically, how long do your clients work with you? I mean, what's the usual? I mean, is it kind of ongoing, or is it like a certain amount of time?
I mean, I've had clients that have been working with me for 7 years, and typically, I offer a 6-week program where I meet with you once a week for 6 weeks to, because that's really where you can get the maximum results, so just being consistent and committed for that. And also, what I include with the program is self-hypnosis audios, because I love hypnosis. I know when I first heard about hypnosis, I thought, "Oh my god, my audience is gonna think I'm crazy," but I feel like hypnosis is very powerful. And so you start with a 6-week program with me, and then from there, you can, come back. We could do a 3-week, 6-week, or, 9-week from there.
Hmm. So talk to me a little bit about your staffing company as well, because you have another business besides your
I do.
coaching.
So for 25 years, I have, run the Stansbury staffing here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and it has been such an incredible blessing and journey. I've had the opportunity to work with incredible organizations here in our community, and I've really helped place, thousands of candidates. And that's how the coaching side of the business came about, because in, helping individuals on their career path, there's a tremendous amount of coaching that's involved. And I found that I really loved that piece of the business. It just came very naturally to me. And I'd have an incredible executive assistant come in to meet with me who was amazing, yet her confidence would be to the floor. And I'm like, don't you see how incredible you are? You've done all these incredible things. And through the process, I'd coach, her to gain her confidence back, and then we'd send her, into these, interviews, and she'd end up, getting the position. And that really filled me. And that's how the, coaching side of the business started, because I really just enjoyed mentoring and coaching not only our candidates, but our clients and my team as well.
That's extraordinary. You've been through 4 economic uh, downfalls and 1 global pandemic. What
Yeah.
strategies can you tell entrepreneurs to use to build resilience during challenging times?
Mm. That's a great question. And it's going to happen. Challenges, adversities are inevitable. And what I would recommend is recognizing, okay, this is only temporary, and making sure, like, to show up each day in any way that you can. And I know this is cliche, but really in our challenges, there are opportunities, hidden opportunities. And I know, like, I can say that now, 25 years in, and as I look back, it was very challenging. I don't want to sugarcoat it. Going through these adversities and challenges, it's hard. And it's hard to fall into the rabbit hole. So you choose which hard. Do you want to show up each day, and move through the hard, or do you want to fall down that rabbit hole and stay, and feel that the world is ending? And so
Right.
during the times, I would just show up. I'd still show up. I'd still serve. Service is huge.
I agree. I think also it's just important that people's attitude, I find that, sometimes we think these things are happening to us, but sometimes they're happening for us. And
Absolutely.
so I think if people can see, like, yes, that, there's difficult economic times. Okay, so what can you do to optimize them? And I think that's the key. I think that's one of the strengths you have is your, positive attitude that you share, that I think oftentimes a lot of people are very pessimistic and negative.
Yes.
And it's a habit, and
Yes.
you're the perfect habit breaker of that. What do you find that everyone that comes to you has in common?
Well, the stress. People are very stressed. They are giving their power away to their triggers. And it's not to minimize it, but when we can have an understanding and get curious as to what is activating us, then we take our power back, and we're able to recognize, okay, this is one of my triggers. Understanding why, changing the story, that's huge. Like, that awareness is huge, because our triggers keep us in the fight or flight response, and they keep us stressed out. So when we're stressed out, how are we able to come up with, solutions that are going to benefit us? When we're stressed out, it's harder to move forward, it's harder to be positive, and understanding ourselves and where our triggers are coming from is a key component for sure.
So what are the 3 C's of success that you mentioned in your topics, and how can our listeners apply them?
I would say commitment, consistency, and courage, because you may not see results right away. You're probably not going to see results right away, which means you need to have that courage to stay committed and consistent. And I'd also add a fourth C, connected. We also need to be connected with ourselves and know our why, to keep showing up, to be committed and consistent. Because yes, we can, be in a high vibration energy, and we can visualize, and we can definitely manifest, but it also takes action. And that action needs to be a commitment, and it needs to be consistent. And
Do
sometimes when
you
you get discouraged, that's where the courage comes in to keep showing up.
Right. What do you think is the biggest challenge for most people that come to you for the coaching? Is it the consistency, or like, what do you find that is like that you consistently see happening over and over with your clients, that there is a challenge for them?
That's a great question. It's really the being committed and consistent with the action. Because if we want to,
Mm-hmm.
get a fit body, you cannot go to the gym, once a week for 10 minutes. That's how's that going to help? And results don't come from just going once. And so that's where I find, there's a challenge. It's a challenge with being committed and consistent to the action to get to where they want to go. And typically I find out there's an unconscious story that's there, it's self-sabotage that's holding them back from taking the action. And part of it is they don't really know their why. Our why really pushes us to commit and be consistent to the action.
That's interesting. We're going to take a commercial break, and we are going to be back with Miss Grace Redman in a few minutes.
Mike Zorek, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hi, I'm Christina Flach, and we are back with Miss Grace Redman, and we are chatting about all the things that are going on in her amazing life. So, you've overcome some really personal challenges with like family addiction and cancer. How can individuals turn adversity into personal growth?
Mm. Like we mentioned earlier, again, you said it's whatever the adversity is happening for us. It's not happening to us, which is not always easy to see it that way, especially like, most people come from a lack mentality or a negative mentality, a victim mentality, which I grew up in an environment where it was a victim mentality. And so when these things happen and we can step back and say, you know what, I am not a victim of my circumstance. Yes, this is a tragedy. It's terrible. However, I'm not going to let it overcome me. And a big piece of it is the mindset. And also taking accountability, because a lot of times we get ourselves in certain situations. We get ourselves there. And so there's been times where I had to take accountability as well, because I got
Right.
myself into, toxic relationships. I got myself, into burnout. So I also had to learn how to take accountability for myself. And that's, whoever's watching, is we need to take accountability for our part.
Do you find,
Which a
was
lot
that hard for you? Or is that hard for you? And do you find that hard for your clients as well? Like when mishaps happen? I don't know. I don't feel that. I mean, there's always going to be bumps in the road, but I don't think that these bumps are failures. I mean, sometimes it means you need to turn left instead of right. And I think people focus so heavily on failing. Like, am I going to fail? Is this going to fail? That's where they're, I mean, you and I've talked about this before. The universe is going to give you whatever it is you focus upon. So if you focus upon failure and all this negativity, that's what the universe thinks you want. So that's what's going to happen. So how do you relay that to someone that doesn't believe in all the woo woo that you and I believe in?
Well, it's really not woo-woo, it's energy. It's energy. It's like a boomerang. What you put out there,
I
it
don't,
comes
you
back.
know, I don't think it's woo woo, but
I know. But it's so
totally.
funny to
But
call to
I think some people,
totally. It's so funny because I was on a call earlier and she's like, Grace, the language, you have to use a different language. I'm like, ah, I get it. And I told her, I'm like, but it's really not woo, it's energy. But like you said earlier, most people have a negative, mindset. And there really is no failure. Failure is feedback. We're not like, I want to fail because that's how I'm going to learn. And Sarah Blakely, she's the inventor of Spanx. I heard a story the other day that when they came to the dinner table in the evening, her father would ask her, "What did you fail at today?" And she attributes that to her success.
that is such a great thing. And some people could turn that as a negative comment from her dad, but it actually wasn't, because
No,
failure in their house was a positive thing. Because I really believe I started doing, being on NBC on California Live, and I was terrified. But being on live TV gave me so much confidence that I didn't even know I possessed. And it was
yeah,
shocking. And I think if people could see that, these bumps in the road are going to get you stronger, you're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to have confidence in your belt that you didn't even know was there.
absolutely. And I do believe that resilience builds confidence because majority of us have been through challenging times. And I talk to my clients and say, you're lacking confidence right now. However, if you look back at your life and you connect the dots, you'll see how far you've come and all the hard things you've overcome. That builds confidence. That's right there is the resilience
Do
and
you,
confidence.
it's amazing to me how many people go through life feeling, I mean, we all have insecurities and we all feel badly, but what do you think differentiates the CEOs and the high executives in the world from people that are just stagnant? What is it in them that you think they have that not everyone else has?
That's a great question. Well, one, they invest in themselves. And two, they have an unwavering belief and conviction in their goal. That they believe in themselves and they have conviction. And sometimes they may not always be aware, but one thing they do, they invest in themselves and they have conviction that their goal is going to be achieved. That
Yeah,
conviction
that,
is
and I don't, and do you think that's just innately in them, or do you think that's something that's learned?
that's a great question. That's a great question. And it's like, why do you have two children go up in the same household and one just is so driven and gets, whatever they want, and the other one just can't make it? I've asked that question, so many times. What is it? Is it something innate? Is it learned? That's a great question. It's
I
it's
think
it's a
everyone's different. I don't know if there's one answer to that. I think that's probably, I think there's just so many differentials in people, in their path that they're going through.
for
What
sure.
made you decide to go on? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. What were you going to say?
What I wanted to share was that there is a roadmap for success in whatever you want to do. It's out there. You could YouTube it, you can Google it, you could work with a coach. There's steps that you can take to become successful in whatever you want, especially us, living in, you know, a free country. It's out there, but most people, I feel, don't have what it takes because they're afraid of that failure. And also they're afraid to be great because who am I to be great?
I think a lot of it, what you mentioned earlier is, what was your childhood like? Were your parents encouraging? Did your parents tell you to dream big and, shoot for the stars? And so I think, as parents, it's really important, our words. I've said to my kids, figure out what you love doing so much that you would do it for free, and then figure out how to get paid. And I know you've been similarly, you know, positive with your sons as well. What is it that you tell your kids about life and success and failure?
Well, I mean, I've definitely had to step back and allow them to explore. They're not on the traditional trajectory. However, I do stress to them that you really need to figure out, you know, like some type of why for where you are right now. And also you have to love yourself and be connected to yourself. And I know there's so many distractions out there and social media, and they're seeing, people that are creating, success overnight, which that's not a reality. So that's why I tell them, definitely explore, see what you want to do. There's no right or wrong way to do it, but the most important thing is you have to connect with yourself. You have to love yourself and believe in yourself
That's
and know
true.
that you can do it. The self-worth it's huge.
Do you find that most entrepreneurs that you work with, are they going into the business that they're in to make a lot of money or to be successful or because they love it?
That's a great question. I would say a little bit of each of those. I think, of course, everybody, we need money to live, but the majority of the entrepreneurs that I work with really they love helping other people. And one of the questions on my application for staffing is, what's your motivation? And I would say 95% of the time, the person would write down helping others. So I feel like the majority of entrepreneurs I work with, service is, would be on the top of the list. And of course, everyone wants financial freedom.
Definitely.
That's, a key factor as well.
So, what made you decide to become an author? Was that something that you wanted to do always, or how did that come about? Like, did you just wake up one day and say, I think I'm going to write this book?
That's a great question. No, I never thought about writing a book or being an author. When I got into the coaching industry, I was told that to have credibility, it would be a great idea for you to write a book. And I've journaled my entire life. And so I said, sure, I can do that. And so I started the journey of writing the book, not realizing how incredibly healing it would be for me in writing the book. So it was a really healing experience for me to write the book.
Did you write every day, or did you like kind of schedule it, or how did it, like, how long did it take, the whole process?
So I would wake up very early in the morning to do the writing. And what I wanted to share was, when I was 19 years old and I went to therapy, the therapist, when she met me when I was 19, she felt there would be no more hope left. There was no hope left for me. And, here I was, as I was in my late 40s or 50, a woman who had, achieved tremendous success despite my circumstances. And so I wanted to share all of the principles in the book that got me to where I was. And so that's how I broke it down. I'm like, okay, what was the first thing? Okay, what was the second thing? And so that's how I wrote the book is, and you could read any chapter, you don't have to read it in order. It was just different tools and principles that I learned and used to help me to get to where I am today. So it was a journey. It
How
took me
long
a
did
little
it
bit.
take you? How long did it take you to write the book?
I started it took me a total of 5 years, but the bulk of it was done during the pandemic. And well, here it goes. I committed to completing 1 chapter a month. So I was, committed to completing a chapter a month, which made me committed and consistent to the mornings, writing in the mornings to get it done in the time allotted.
Was it hard to express your like feelings of, you were very open in your book. Um, was that was that challenging for you, or did it feel like, were you worried about how that was going to go over in your home and with your family and friends?
It was challenging. I really was conscious on being very respectful with the stories that I used. I I because again, this is real life. It's not a fiction. So I was very mindful. I didn't really use names or give too much detail, but I gave enough detail to make it vulnerable and raw. And if you read the epilogue, I mean, it was probably one of the rawest thing I've ever read, and I had to go, um I'm getting emotional.
Oh,
I had
honey, I'm hugging you.
because, it was so I had to go to my husband and ask him, "Do you mind if I write about our situation right now in my book? Because I will not feel authentic if I don't share about this." And he gave me permission, and I don't wanna give it away, but he gave me permission. He said, "Yes, you can
That
write
was
about
very
it."
generous of him. It was very
Very,
generous of him, and
very
very
generous.
brave, and very
Very,
brave.
very brave, very generous. And so it just, yes, I put myself out there in a way that was uncomfortable.
So you got
Yeah.
comfortable being uncomfortable.
I got comfortable being uncomfortable. Yes.
So what part of the book surprised you that you that you wrote about? Did anything come about that you were like, you didn't think you'd talk about, or that you thought you'd talk about and then you decided not to?
Well, the epilogue, because it was very personal, it was very private. It wasn't just dealing with, it wasn't just about me, it was about my husband and my children. And people were like, wow. They were shocked. However, I also believe that it's important for us to be open because a lot of us struggle in silence. And when you show up and really are open and you open your heart, you don't know who you're helping. And that's what it was important to me was, I don't know who's struggling in silence. And me really sharing this, I had to share it or else I would have felt like a fraud. I would have felt like a fraud if I put this book out and I didn't share that. And so I believe like everything unfolded in divine timing because like this happened 2 months before I was going to launch, my book before launch date. And I told my publisher, like, I need to talk about this or I can't put this out.
how did you get a publisher?
It's like when you put something out in the universe, it starts lining up the right
Isn't it
people.
amazing? Isn't it amazing how that
Always,
happens?
always,
I know.
always. I just I have so many incredible people in my life that have just helped support my journey, in business and in life. The universe is always listening.
When did you figure that out? That the universe is always listening? Like, how many times did something have to happen before you were like, you know what? I actually have these magical powers. I need to use them wisely.
I think it's just been the last maybe 5 or 6 years where I've really tapped into the power of the universe. And as a young child, I knew there was something. And then as I kept getting older, I'm like, okay, there's something. There's something. But now, like, I have no doubt. And don't get me wrong, there are times that, I get my pity party. I'm like, okay, Grace, like, the universe has your back. There's a higher power. I'm like, yes, I do know, but can I just have this moment? I'm
Yes,
human,
I just need a moment to just be like, ugh, and I
right?
don't like things. Yeah, I
Right.
get it.
Our faith, the C's: connection, community, commitment, consistency, courage. Everything is going to be okay. It's
I think
just,
that's the best thing that we know. If I think that takes so much pressure off of us is knowing that everything's going to be okay, and and just having faith that it will, and just going through this bump. We're going to talk more about this with Grace Redman when we come back from our commercial break. I'm Christina Flach with I'm Too Busy.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Hi, I'm Christina Flach with I'm Too Busy TV, and this is my guest, Miss Grace Redman. So let's talk a little bit about Real Talk, your podcast.
Mhm.
What made you decide to start that? And tell me a little bit about who you chat with and all about those interesting interviews that you do every week.
I love it. It's one of the funnest things I do. So during the pandemic, I really missed connecting. And because, in the staffing world and the coaching world, I was seeing, at least 6 to 10 people in person, sometimes per day. And that's what fueled me, like connecting in that way. And I really missed that. And again, talking about the universe, one night I had an intuitive hit, like, I want to connect with people. And I loved celebrating and honoring people. And I recognize, like, there are so many incredible people in my communities and circles that are doing some really awesome things. and they don't get highlighted. Like we love, Steph Curry and J-Lo, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we really miss out on the incredible people in our circles that are really giving back to the community in the world in a great way. So I said, you know what? I want to connect and I want to celebrate other people. So I want to do a podcast. And so that's how it started, was during the pandemic, to help fill me, connect with others, and celebrate the awesome people in my life. And it's been it's been a joy. It's been one of the funnest things that I do. And it's helped me kind of branch out. I've met some incredible, awesome people doing it. And I had a guest on recently, just a very successful young person who started their own company. And I got a message from both their parents saying, "Oh my gosh, we have been trying to get him to talk for so long, for his entire life. And we can't believe, how he just showed up and how intelligent." Not that of course, I know he's intelligent, but how he opened up. And so when I got that message, I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like, it just felt amazing that I gave, this person, the platform to feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable and talk about things that he may not be comfortable talking about before.
How many episodes do you have in your belt right now?
So we are at 96. So we're going to be at episode 100 very soon.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite an accomplishment. You must feel really good about that.
It's been just a gift and a pleasure, and it's exciting to be at 100 episodes very
So
soon.
what do most of your guests like have? Are they mostly business people, or do you just have a whole array of all your people in your world that do interesting things?
It is just a really wide array. Like, one of my friends, he went at the age of, like, I think 21. Went to St. Quentin for attempted murder. When he came out
Wow.
6 years, right? When he came out 6 years later, he became involved in the community. Now he created, these football teams for lower income, families. He's been doing that for 20 plus years. That's just an example. One of my friends was the lead singer for Santana, and now he's doing indie records. So he came on. It's just such a wide range. But each person overcame incredible circumstances and challenges to really create success.
Don't you think that's one thing that, it's so funny. People think that, oh, you're an overnight success. And, no one realizes everyone. And that's one thing that I get as a makeup artist, and just with people I know, that everyone has a story, whether it's a CEO or a model or an athlete or a politician. Everyone has had bumps in the road. And that's one thing that we all have in common, is
Yeah.
these challenges. And what I think the differentiating factor is how we choose to deal with, bumps in the road and difficult times. And I think that's who you really see, how people succeed, like how they handle these bumps. What do you think that all the people that, let's just chat about your guests. What is it that they have in common with dealing with adversity? What do you think they all have, or what do they not have?
Well, mindset is key. Mindset. How are you perceiving the situation? What are the action choices that you're making? Also, gratitude is something that's huge. They're focusing on what is working as opposed to what isn't working, and they're recognizing what isn't working and identifying solutions to close those gaps.
Right.
And they don't give up. They don't give up.
So I totally agree with you. So who's your dream guest that you'd like to have on your show?
Oh, my dream guest. I've never thought about that. Um,
You can
you
say
know,
two or three.
okay. So who just dropped into my head? Tom Brady, because Tom Brady grew up in our neighborhood and our field is
Right.
named after him. And Mr. Brady Sr. is always at our football games. And who doesn't love the GOAT? So Tom Brady. Oh my God,
Okay.
Wallen.
Who?
Morgan Wallen. I just went to his concert and I love music. And
Okay.
um, I'm okay.
They
Who
don't have
else?
to, let's just play this game. They don't even have to be alive anymore.
Okay.
You could go
Um,
back in history, pick
Mother
anybody you
Teresa.
want. Oh,
Mother
And why?
Teresa.
Why Mother Teresa? Why her?
Because I really believe at the end of the day, the answer is love. And she was the epitome of love and kindness and humanity. And I feel like we've lost humanity right now. And so I would
I
love to interview her and ask her, like, how can we restore humanity and come from a place of love and kindness instead of division and separation?
Yeah, that would be nice. So I want to ask you a couple questions, just as these are your personal questions. Are you reading anything special right now?
I am. I'm reading Where the Crawdads Sing, which I rarely ever read fiction, but I'm enjoying it very much. And I'm reading, I read a few different things. Ken Keyes, and it's just about, I don't remember the title of Higher Consciousness by Ken Keyes.
Okay.
That's what I'm.
What's your workout schedule right now? What are you doing for workouts?
So a new see the universe answers my prayers because a new studio opened very close to me where I get to go to 6 a.m. Inferno hot Pilates class on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then I go to
Perfect.
the studio in Pacifica for hot Pilates with my girlfriend on Saturdays. I am in the gym the other days because I know for my age, weightlifting is very important. So I'm weightlifting as well. And I watched Dr. Casey Means back in May, where she said, even if you're exercising and you have a workout routine, you need to get in at least 7,000 steps a day. So since May, I've been getting in 7,000 steps a day as well.
Has that made
It's
a
been,
difference in how you
yes,
look and feel?
absolutely. It's an effort, it's an effort. Like all of this is an effort. You don't get to where you're at without, again, commitment, consistency, and action. And sometimes you have to sacrifice. Like I cannot sit and binge watch Entourage with my family. I
Yeah,
gotta, I gotta get my steps in. I gotta get my
right.
work done.
Yeah, it's nice like having that non-guilt. You do that and it's like you don't have to think about it anymore. What about your
Right.
diet? Do you have a special diet that you follow, or do you eat kind of what you
So,
like?
you know, I've had to really be conscious on what I put in my body. So typically I eat very clean. I'm not telling you that I don't eat chocolate cake and I don't eat, fun things. I do. However, for I would say 90%, I am gluten free, dairy free, preservative free, and it works. I feel amazing. I feel better now than I've ever had. And I had a thyroidectomy back in 2022 because of cancerous growths. They told me I would never be the same again. And I was determined to prove them wrong. And, almost 2 years later, I feel better than I ever have. And it's because I've done, all of this work. It's not, I
I
don't
love
drink
that.
alcohol. Yeah, I rarely drink alcohol anymore. I don't really I don't do drugs. Marijuana is legal here, and I exercise. I'm very mindful of where I invest my time and my energy. I make a really conscious.
We had a little pause there for a second. Where's your happy place?
Oh, my happy place is with the people I love, my family, my dog. It's in the studio. It's with my clients. It's, when I take my walks. I feel so grateful and blessed that most days, the entire day is my happy place, which is crazy to say that.
No, I think that's fantastic. I wish that was everyone's answer.
Hey, it's a lot of
What would
work. I
be,
didn't get here
it
overnight.
is, it's not easy being exceptional. So what would be the last thing that you want to tell the world? Tell me, what is some like advice that you would just give out that means a lot to you?
Honestly, it's just that self-love and compassion and forgiveness for yourself. When you can kind of go within and start with that, then that'll radiate out. Like it comes from here. All of it comes from connecting to yourself and a higher power, whatever that may be to you.
I love that.
That's
That's Oh, Grace, I love you so much. Thank you for
I love
being on my show today.
it was
Thank
such a
everyone
pleasure.
for being here. Thank you so much. I'm Christina Flach, and I'm too busy. I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.
This has been I'm Too Busy with host Christina Flach. Tune in each week as Christina approaches the concept of success holistically, recognizing that achievement is not solely measured by financial triumphs, but also by maintaining a healthy work-life balance and focusing on self-care. Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network, powered by B2 Studios.